Margaret, don't sign anything today, and don't go home.
Those words, whispered in a hospital hallway by a woman I hadn't seen in years, shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. I'm telling you this story today because some of you already know what I'm about to describe. You felt it, that slow, creeping sense that the people you raised, the people you sacrificed everything for, are circling you like vultures, waiting, planning. And the most terrifying part? They're doing it with smiles on their faces and "I love you, Mom" on their lips. But here's what they didn't count on. I didn't just survive their little scheme, I buried them with it, used their own twisted system to rip away everything they thought they'd stolen from me. And trust me, by the time I was done, they understood exactly who they'd underestimated. If you're facing elder abuse, manipulation, control, or worse, I want you to know you're not alone. Share your story below, even briefly, or if that feels too hard right now, just tell us where you're from. Sometimes courage starts with a single word. You matter. Your voice matters. Let's stand together. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind that smells like burnt toast and coffee gone cold. My daughter-in-law, Emily, had offered to drive me to the hospital for what she called a routine records update. Insurance forms, emergency contacts, the usual paperwork circus that comes with aging in America. I should mention, Emily was always the helpful one, always volunteering, always concerned. After my husband died 3 years ago, she became my shadow. "Mom, let me handle that. Mom, you shouldn't drive so far. Mom, we'll take care of everything." At the time, I thought it was love. How stupid I was. The hospital reception area buzzed with that antiseptic energy, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the squeak of rubber-soled shoes on linoleum, the metallic tang of fear mixed with hand sanitizer. Emily guided me to the intake desk, her hand gentle on my elbow like I was made of glass. That's when everything changed. The nurse behind the computer looked up, and her face went dead white, not pale, white, like she'd seen a ghost sitting in front of her. Her name was Linda Carter. We'd been neighbors decades ago, back when our kids played in sprinklers and we traded casserole recipes over backyard fences. She knew me, really knew me, not as some medical chart or liability risk, but as Margaret Wilson, the woman who taught second grade for 30 years, who organized the church bake sales, who never missed a mortgage payment. Linda's fingers froze on the keyboard. Her eyes darted between me and Emily, then back to her screen. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. "Mrs. Wilson," she said carefully, her voice tight, "could you come with me for just a moment? There's a discrepancy I need to clarify." Emily started to stand. "I'll come with. Just Mrs. Wilson, please." Linda's tone left no room for argument. My heart hammered against my ribs as Linda led me down a side hallway, away from the waiting area. The smell of industrial cleaner grew stronger. Somewhere nearby, a machine beeped rhythmically, counting down something I couldn't name. Linda glanced over her shoulder, then pulled me into an empty consultation room. She shut the door. Her hands were shaking. "Margaret," she breathed, and her voice cracked on my name. "Don't sign anything today. Don't go home." The words hung between us like smoke. "What? Linda, what are you talking about?" Instead of answering, she turned her tablet toward me. I saw my name at the top. Margaret Ann Wilson. Date of birth correct. Address correct. Then I saw the rest. End-of-life consent forms I'd never seen before. A legal guardian designation listing my son, Daniel, not Emily, not me. And there, buried in the medical notes like a landmine waiting to explode, suspected early-stage dementia, cognitive decline noted by family members. Patient may lack capacity for independent medical decision-making. The room tilted. The fluorescent lights above suddenly felt too bright, too sharp, stabbing into my skull. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "I wasn't supposed to see this file," Linda whispered urgently, "but when your name came up, I recognized you. Margaret, someone's been building a case. They're trying to have you declared incompetent." My throat closed. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "Who?" I managed to croak. Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Your family, Margaret, your own family." In that moment, everything I thought I knew about love, about family, about the last 3 years of my life, it all crumbled to dust. And somewhere in the back of my mind, underneath the shock and betrayal, something else began to stir. Something cold, something calculating, something they were going to regret waking up. Because if they thought a diagnosis code and forged paperwork would erase me, they were about to learn a very expensive lesson. I wasn't dead yet, and the war had just begun. I stood in that consultation room staring at the screen, and for the first time in my 68 years, I understood what it meant to be erased while still breathing. Linda kept talking, her words tumbling out in urgent whispers, but I couldn't hear her anymore. All I could see was that single line of text glowing on the tablet. Suspected early-stage dementia. 4 words. That's all it took to murder someone without touching them. My hands started shaking, not from fear, not yet, from rage so pure it felt like acid in my veins. Because here's what you need to understand. I balanced my checkbook every month to the penny. I volunteered at the library. I drove myself to church, to the grocery store, to my doctor's appointments. My mind was sharp. My memory was intact. I could recite phone numbers I'd memorized 40 years ago. And they knew it. Daniel knew it. Emily knew it. They did this anyway. Linda pulled up more screens, clicking through documents I'd supposedly signed but never seen. Pre-authorization for end-of-life care, do not resuscitate orders, financial power of attorney transferred to Daniel 6 months ago, around the same time I'd gone in for a routine physical. That physical. I remembered it now. Emily had insisted on coming with me. She'd sat in the exam room the entire time, answering questions the doctor directed at me. I'd thought she was being supportive. She was building evidence. My stomach lurched. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Linda's hand touched my shoulder, steadying me. Her voice finally broke through the roaring in my ears. "Margaret, you need to leave, right now. Don't go back out there with her." I looked up at Linda's face. Tears streaked her cheeks. "If you sign anything today, if you go home with them, you might not get another chance. They're this close to having you declared incompetent. Once that happens, you lose everything, your house, your bank accounts, your right to make decisions about your own body." The weight of it crushed down on me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan, calculated, methodical, executed over months, maybe years. And I'd been too trusting, too grateful for their help, too damn polite to see it. What do I do? My voice sounded small, broken. I hated how weak I sounded. Linda glanced at the door, then back at me, her jaw set with determination. "Stay here. Tell Emily you're feeling unwell and need more tests. I'll make sure you're admitted for observation overnight. That buys you time." Time? For what? To do what? I was one woman, alone, widowed, 68 years old with adult children who'd apparently decided I was already dead. How do you fight that? But even as despair tried to swallow me whole, something else flickered to life. Something stubborn. Something that remembered standing in front of 30-second graders every year and teaching them that bullies only win if you let them. I straightened my spine, wiped my eyes, took a breath that tasted like disinfectant and fury. "Okay," I said quietly. "Okay, let's do it." The next 6 hours blurred together. Linda kept Emily away, citing hospital protocol and privacy regulations. I underwent tests I didn't need, blood work, cognitive screening, mobility assessments, all of it theater, all of it buying time. Emily's text messages piled up on my phone, concerned, loving, poisonous. "Mom, what's taking so long? Are you okay? The nurse said you're staying overnight. Should I come back? Daniel and I are worried. Call me when you can." I didn't answer. Couldn't, because if I heard her voice, if she said "Mom" one more time with that syrupy sweetness, I might scream. Or worse, I might believe her again. By evening, I sat alone in a hospital room with pale yellow walls and a window overlooking the parking lot. My phone lay silent on the bedside table. Outside, the sun set in streaks of bruised purple and orange. I thought about my husband, John, dead 3 years now from a heart attack so sudden we didn't even get to say goodbye. What would he think of this, of his son doing this to me? The grief that crashed over me then wasn't for John. It was for Daniel, for the boy I'd raised, the child I'd loved unconditionally. Where did that child go? When did he turn into someone who could look at his mother and see nothing but a bank account to liquidate? A soft knock interrupted my spiral. Linda entered, carrying a food tray and something else, a folder. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said, setting both down, "but I printed your full file, everything they've submitted, every note, every form." She sat on the edge of my bed, her face lined with exhaustion. "Margaret, there's someone you need to call, someone who can help you fight this legally." I stared at the folder, my name printed on the tab, my entire life reduced to paperwork designed to erase me. "Who?" I whispered. "Do you remember Henry Moore? He lived on Maple Street, retired lawyer. He handled your will years ago when John was still alive." Henry, yes, I remembered him. Quiet man, sharp eyes. John had trusted him completely. I ran into his daughter last month. He's still practicing part-time, estate law, elder rights. Margaret, if anyone can untangle this mess, it's him. Hope flickered, fragile, terrifying, because hope meant fighting, and fighting meant admitting this was real.
Linda squeezed my hand. Her grip was warm, steady. "You're not powerless," she said fiercely. "Don't let them convince you otherwise." After she left, I sat holding that folder. Outside, darkness swallowed the parking lot. Streetlights blinked on one by one. I thought about the life I'd built, the house where I'd raised my children, the garden I tended every spring, the independence I'd fought so hard to maintain after John died. They wanted to take it all, thought they could just erase me. My fingers tightened on the folder's edge. No, they couldn't. Not without a fight they'd never forget. I reached for my phone, found Henry's number through directory assistance. My finger hovered over the call button. This was it, the moment I chose to either surrender or go to war with my own family. The phone rang once, twice. A man's voice answered, rough with age but alert. "Henry Moore speaking." I took a breath, let the anger steady me. "Henry, this is Margaret Wilson. I don't know if you remember me, but I need help, and I need it now." There was a pause, then recognition warmed his tone. "Margaret, of course I remember. What's happened?" "My family is trying to have me declared incompetent. They've falsified medical records. They're stealing my life piece by piece." Another pause, longer this time. When Henry spoke again, his voice had changed, gone cold, tactical. "Don't sign anything. Don't go home. And Margaret? Yes? Get ready for war, because that's exactly what this is." I closed my eyes, let his words sink in. War. So be it.
Henry Moore arrived at the hospital the next morning carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than both of us combined. I hadn't slept. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that screen, that diagnosis code, my son's name listed as my legal guardian like I was already a corpse he was managing. Henry looked exactly as I remembered, tall, thin, with silver hair combed precisely and eyes that missed nothing. He moved slowly, carefully, like a man who'd learned that speed wasn't nearly as important as accuracy. He sat in the chair beside my bed and opened his briefcase without saying a word. The smell of old leather and paper filled the small room. Finally, he looked at me, really looked at me. "Margaret," he said gently, "I'm going to ask you some questions. They'll feel invasive, clinical, but I need to establish baseline competency before we proceed. Do you understand?" I nodded. My throat felt tight. For the next 30 minutes, he tested me. "What year is it? Who's the president? Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? Recite your address, your social security number, the names of your children." I answered every question perfectly, my voice steady, my mind clear. When it was over, Henry closed his notebook and leaned back. His expression had gone from neutral to furious. "They fabricated this," he said coldly. "Every word of it. There's not a single legitimate medical basis for questioning your capacity." Relief and rage hit me simultaneously. I'd known it was a lie, but hearing a lawyer confirm it made it real. "Can we fight it?" I asked. My voice cracked on the question. Henry's jaw tightened. He looked out the window at the gray morning sky. "We can, but Margaret, you need to understand what you're walking into. This isn't a simple legal dispute. Your son has guardianship paperwork filed, medical records supporting incapacity. If we challenge this directly, it becomes a he said, she said battle in probate court. Those cases take months, sometimes years." My heart sank. Months, years. I didn't have that kind of time, not while they controlled my accounts, my home, my life. Then what do we do? Desperation leaked into my words. Henry turned back to me. His eyes had gone cold, strategic. "We don't argue," he said quietly. "We don't fight their narrative head on. We move through the system they built and dismantle it from the inside." I stared at him, not understanding. He leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "Your family used records to trap you, medical forms, legal documents. But records are a double-edged sword, Margaret. They leave trails, and trails can be followed backward." Something shifted in my chest, a spark catching. "What kind of trails?" Henry pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. His handwriting was precise, controlled. "First, we need to establish a timeline. When did this start? When were these forms supposedly signed? We'll cross-reference every date with your actual medical visits, your banking activity, anything that proves you were functioning independently." He looked up at me sharply. "Second, we find contradictions. If they claim you were incompetent on a specific date, but you were signing legal documents or managing complex tasks that same week, we have evidence of fabrication." My mind started racing. I'd refinanced my mortgage 8 months ago, alone. I'd handled all the paperwork myself. The bank wouldn't have processed that if I'd been incompetent. "Third," Henry continued, his pen moving across the page, "we search for motive, financial records, property deeds, beneficiary designations. We build a picture of what they stand to gain." He paused, met my eyes. "And fourth, this is crucial, we stay quiet. We don't confront them. We don't show our hand. The moment they know we're fighting back, they'll accelerate, file emergency petitions, move assets. We need time to build an airtight case." The words settled over me like armor, cold, heavy, protective. This wasn't going to be a screaming match, wasn't going to be tears and accusations. This was going to be surgical.
I can do that, I said, my voice steadier now. I can stay quiet. Henry's expression softened slightly, almost smiled. Good, because here's what they don't understand about seniors like us, Margaret. We've spent decades watching, listening, learning how systems work. We know patience. We know precision. He tapped his pen on the notepad. They think age makes us weak, but it actually makes us dangerous, because we've outlived people who underestimated us before. Something fierce bloomed in my chest, not rage anymore, purpose. What's our first move? I asked. Henry stood, gathering his papers. You're going to be discharged today. You're going to go home, act normal, confused if you need to. Let Emily and Daniel think their plan is working. My stomach twisted at the thought of walking back into that house, of pretending everything was fine while they circled me like sharks. Meanwhile, Henry continued, I'll request your complete medical records from every facility you visited in the last 5 years. I'll file public records requests for any guardianship documents, and I'll start digging into your husband's estate. He paused at the door, turned back. One more thing. Do you remember the will John drafted before he died? The original one. I frowned, searching my memory. John had updated his will several times. The final version left everything to me, with provisions for the children after my death. But there'd been another draft, earlier, before his heart attack. He'd been working with Henry on something specific, protecting my rights if anything happened to him. I remember, I said slowly, but we never finalized it. He died before we could sign. Henry's eyes gleamed. Unsigned wills can still have evidentiary value. They show intent. And if that draft includes language about your capacity and autonomy, it undermines everything Daniel's claiming now. Hope flared brighter, hotter. Can you find it? I'm going to try, but Margaret, his voice turned grave. Once we start this, there's no going back. Your relationship with your son, with Emily, it's over. Even if we win, some things can't be repaired. I thought about Daniel, about the boy who'd cried in my arms when his goldfish died, the teenager who'd called me every Sunday from college, the man who'd stood beside me at his father's funeral and promised he'd take care of me. That person was gone. Maybe he never existed at all. I understand, I said. Let's burn it down. Henry nodded once, sharp, final. War it is.
3 hours later, I sat in Emily's car as she drove me home. She chattered about casseroles she'd made, errands she'd run, how worried everyone had been. I made appropriate sounds, smiled weakly, played the part. Inside, I was counting, calculating, planning. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. County Records Office opens at 8 a.m. I'll be there when the doors open. H. I deleted the message, looked out the window at familiar streets passing by. Emily glanced over, concern etched on her pretty face. Mom, are you sure you're feeling okay? You've been so quiet. I turned to her, let my expression go soft, vulnerable. Just tired, dear. So tired. She reached over and patted my hand. Her touch made my skin crawl. Don't worry, Mom. We'll take care of everything. You don't have to think about anything complicated anymore. The words were meant to comfort. They sounded like a death sentence. But she didn't know, couldn't know. I wasn't giving up. I was loading the gun. And very soon, they'd realize that the confused old woman they'd tried to erase was the most dangerous enemy they'd ever made. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Margaret, this is Linda. Something else came up in your file. Something big. Call me when you're alone. My pulse quickened. What now? What else had they done? I stared at the message as Emily pulled into my driveway. Whatever Linda had found, whatever new horror waited in those records, I had a feeling it was about to change everything.
I waited until Emily left before I called Linda back. She'd stayed for 2 hours after bringing me home, fussing, straightening pillows, making tea I didn't drink, playing the devoted daughter-in-law while I played the grateful, tired mother. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I locked every door and dialed Linda's number with shaking fingers. She answered on the first ring. Her voice came out rushed, almost frantic. "Margaret, thank God. Are you alone?" "Yes. What did you find?" I heard papers rustling on her end, a door closing, then silence so thick I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. "I shouldn't have access to this," Linda said quietly, "but I pulled your insurance claims history. Margaret, 6 months ago, someone submitted a claim for cognitive behavioral therapy in your name." My stomach dropped. "I never went to therapy." "I know, that's the problem. The claim was approved, paid. Someone collected over $4,000 for sessions that never happened." The room tilted. I sat down hard on the couch, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. "Who submitted it?" Linda's voice went flat, cold. "Emily, using Daniel's insurance authorization as your legal guardian." Insurance fraud, on top of everything else. They weren't just stealing my autonomy, they were stealing money by faking treatment for a condition I didn't have. "There's more," Linda continued, and I could hear the tremor in her voice now. "The therapist listed on the claim, Dr. Sarah Chen. She's legitimate, works at a clinic downtown, but when I called to verify, her office said they'd never heard of you." My hands curled into fists, nails biting into my palms. "So Emily fabricated the entire thing." "Yes, and Margaret, if she's willing to commit fraud this blatant, what else has she done?" That question hung between us like smoke from a fire I couldn't see yet. What else? What else? I thanked Linda and ended the call. Sat in my living room, the room where I'd raised my children, celebrated birthdays, mourned my husband, and felt the walls close in. This house wasn't safe anymore. Nothing was safe. My phone rang again. Henry this time. I answered immediately, my voice hoarse. "Henry, Emily's been—" He cut me off, his words tumbling out urgent and sharp. "Henry, I found it. The draft will. It was in storage at the county records office, misfiled under estate documents from 2019. Hope flared so suddenly it hurt. "What does it say?" "It's even better than I remembered. John drafted specific language protecting your autonomy. It states explicitly that you were to retain full legal and medical decision-making authority for as long as you remained capable of independent judgment. And Margaret, he included a clause." "What kind of clause?" Henry's voice dropped, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in it. "A challenge clause. Anyone attempting to declare you incompetent without clear medical evidence from 3 independent physicians would forfeit their inheritance entirely." The words hit me like lightning. John had known. Somehow, even before he died, he'd known to protect me from this exact scenario. Tears burned my eyes, not from sadness, from something fiercer. "Can we use it?" I whispered. "We can. It's not officially executed, but it establishes intent. Combined with the insurance fraud Linda found, the forged medical records, and the contradictions in the timeline, Margaret, we have them. We actually have them." I closed my eyes. Let myself feel it. Victory. Still distant, still uncertain, but possible. Real. "When do we move?" I asked. "Soon, but first I need you to do something. Tonight, before they have a chance to destroy evidence." My pulse quickened. "What?" "Go to your husband's study, look for his personal files, anything related to estate planning, insurance policies, financial accounts. Photograph everything. Send it to me." I stood,
already moving toward the hallway. John's study had been untouched since he died. I couldn't bear to change it. His books still lined the shelves. His reading glasses sat on the desk. "I'm going now," I said. "Good. And Margaret, if Daniel or Emily show up, hide what you're doing. We can't let them know we're building a case." I promised I would. Ended the call. The study door creaked as I pushed it open. The smell hit me immediately. Old paper, leather, the faint ghost of John's cologne. For a moment, grief threatened to swallow me whole. But I didn't have time for grief. Not now. I started with the desk drawers, files organized by year, by category, tax returns, investment statements, medical bills from John's final months. Then I found the folder, unmarked, tucked in the back of the bottom drawer. Inside were photocopies of documents I'd never seen before, letters between John and Henry, email printouts discussing trust arrangements, guardianship protections, asset transfers. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. John had been meticulous, paranoid even. Every document cross-referenced, every concern addressed. And then I found the letter, handwritten, dated 3 weeks before his heart attack, addressed to me. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I pray you never need these protections, but I can't leave you vulnerable. Daniel has been asking about money, about the house, about what happens when we're gone. His questions worry me. I've structured everything to ensure your independence. Henry knows what to do. Trust him. Trust yourself. You are stronger than anyone gives you credit for, including our son. I love you. I'm sorry I won't be there to protect you myself. John." The paper blurred. Tears splashed onto John's handwriting, smudging the ink. He'd known. He'd seen it coming. And he'd left me weapons. A sound from downstairs froze me mid-breath. The front door opening. Footsteps in the hallway. My heart hammered. I shoved the letter into my pocket, closed the drawer as quietly as possible. Daniel's voice echoed up the stairs, artificially cheerful. "Mom, you home? Emily said you weren't feeling well, so I brought dinner." I didn't answer. Couldn't. My mind raced. He wasn't supposed to be here. He lived 40 minutes away. Why would he drive all this way on a weeknight? Unless Emily had told me I'd been acting strange. Unless they were checking on me, making sure I hadn't figured anything out. I heard his footsteps coming up the stairs. Slow, deliberate. The study door was open. If he looked in, he'd see me standing here among his father's papers. He'd know I was searching, investigating. "Mom?" His voice closer now, right outside the door. I turned, forcing my expression into something soft, confused, the mask I'd been practicing. Daniel appeared in the doorway, tall like his father, but his eyes had gone cold somewhere along the way. He looked at me, at the desk behind me, at the open drawer I hadn't quite closed all the way. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "What are you doing in here, Mom?" he asked gently, but something sharp lurked beneath the words. I swallowed, kept my voice trembling, uncertain. "Just remembering your father. I miss him." Daniel stepped into the room, closed the distance between us. His hand touched my shoulder, and I had to fight every instinct not to flinch away. "I miss him too," he said softly. "But Mom, you shouldn't be going through old files. It's not good for you, all this stress." He guided me toward the door, away from the desk, away from the evidence. "Come on, let's get you something to eat. You need to rest." As he led me downstairs, I felt John's letter burning in my pocket, a bomb waiting to explode. Daniel didn't know what I'd found, didn't know what John had left behind,
but very soon he would, and when he did, everything was going to detonate.
Daniel stayed for 3 hours that night. 3 hours of him watching me, studying me, pretending to care while his eyes tracked every move I made, every word I spoke. He heated up the casserole Emily had made. We ate in silence at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed him as a child, where he'd done his homework, where we'd celebrated every milestone of his life. Now it felt like sitting across from a stranger wearing my son's face. When he finally left, I waited until his taillights disappeared. Then I locked the door, turned off all the lights, and sat in the dark living room with John's letter pressed against my chest. My phone buzzed. Henry. I answered without saying hello. His voice came through low and urgent. Margaret, we have a problem. I got the official guardianship filing. They're moving faster than I expected. Ice flooded my veins. How fast? There's a competency hearing scheduled, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks. 14 days to prove I wasn't the incompetent old woman they'd painted me as. Can we fight it? My voice cracked. Henry was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words came measured, careful. We can, but Margaret, we need something definitive, something that exposes their motives so clearly that no judge can ignore it. The draft will helps, the insurance fraud helps, but we need the smoking gun. I thought about the letter in my hands, about the files still hidden in John's study. What are we looking for? Money. Always follow the money. If Daniel and Emily have been planning this for months, there's a financial trail, bank transfers, property liens, something that shows they needed you declared incompetent to access assets they couldn't otherwise touch. My mind spun. What assets? The house was in my name, my savings account, my pension, everything was mine. Unless they'd already started moving things without my knowledge. Henry, can you check my bank accounts, my credit report, see if anything's been opened or changed? Already on it. I'll have answers by morning. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness and tried to remember. Had I signed anything recently? Any papers Daniel brought by? Any documents Emily slid across the table with a smile? There'd been something, months ago, right after I'd had that routine physical Emily attended. Daniel had brought papers, said they were just updates to my beneficiary designations, nothing major, just making sure everything was current in case something happened to me. I'd signed them, barely looked at them, trusted him. Oh God, what had I signed? I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. My mind ran through every interaction, every conversation, searching for the moment I'd handed them the keys to my destruction. At dawn, I was still sitting in the same chair when my phone rang. Henry, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Margaret, you need to sit down. I'm already sitting. He took a breath, let it out slowly. 3 months ago, your homeowner's insurance policy was changed. You were removed as the primary beneficiary. Daniel was added as the sole recipient in case of your death or incapacitation. The words took a moment to land. When they did, nausea rolled through me. But I didn't... I know. But there's a signature. It matches yours closely enough that the insurance company accepted it. Forgery. They'd forged my signature to make sure they'd inherit the house even if I was still alive but declared incompetent. There's more, Henry continued grimly. Your savings account. You had roughly $80,000. It's down to $12,000. The room spun. I gripped the arm of the chair. Where did it go? Transferred out in small amounts over 6 months. 5,000 here, 3,000 there, always just under the threshold that would trigger a bank fraud alert. My savings, the money I'd carefully built over 30 years of teaching, the nest egg that was supposed to see me through retirement, through medical emergencies, through whatever came. Gone. Stolen by my own son. Can we prove it wasn't me? I whispered. We can try. But Margaret, here's the problem. Some of those transfers happened from your computer, your IP address. If they had access to your house, your passwords... Emily, I said flatly, she's here all the time. She uses my laptop to look up recipes. Henry's silence confirmed what I already knew. They'd been so careful, so methodical, covering their tracks while slowly bleeding me dry. There's one more thing, Henry said, and his voice had gone very quiet. I found a life insurance policy, $250,000. It was taken out 8 months ago in your name. My blood turned to ice. I never took out life insurance. I know, but someone did, with Daniel listed as beneficiary. And Margaret, there's a double indemnity clause for accidental death. The implication hit me like a freight train. They weren't just stealing from me while I was alive, they were planning for my death, hoping for it, maybe even... No, I couldn't let myself think that far, couldn't let that terror root. But the cold, logical part of my brain whispered, why else would they need me declared incompetent if they were just going to wait for natural causes? What do we do? My voice came out small, frightened. Henry's response was steel wrapped in ice. We go to war, today, right now, no more waiting. I'm filing emergency motions to freeze your accounts, block any further transfers, and demand an immediate competency evaluation by independent physicians. Will it work? It'll buy us time, force them to respond, and Margaret, it'll scare them. Scared people make mistakes. I closed my eyes, thought about Daniel as a little boy, about the life insurance policy with his name on it, about how far he was willing to go. Do it, I said. I need you to come to my office. Today, we'll document everything, your testimony, your mental state, build an unshakable record. I agreed, told him I'd be there within the hour.
After hanging up, I sat in my living room and looked at the photos on the wall. Decades of family history. Birthday parties, graduations, weddings. All of it had been a lie. Or worse, it had been real once, and then something had rotted it from the inside. I stood, walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked older than 68, tired, worn down by betrayal. But her eyes were still clear, still sharp, still alive. I splashed cold water on my face, changed into clean clothes, grabbed my purse. Then I heard it. A car in the driveway, the engine cutting off. Through the front window, I saw Emily's SUV, and beside it, Daniel's sedan. Both of them, here, together, at 7 in the morning. My heart hammered. This wasn't a casual visit. This wasn't checking on poor, confused Mom. They knew. Somehow, they knew I was fighting back. The doorbell rang. Emily's voice called out, sweet as poisoned honey. "Mom, are you awake? We brought breakfast. We need to talk to you about something important." I stood frozen in the hallway, John's letter in my pocket, Henry's number on my phone. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. I had 2 choices: answer the door and face whatever trap they'd laid, or run. The back door was 30 feet away, my car in the garage. I could leave right now, drive straight to Henry's office, let him handle the legal warfare while I stayed safe. But running meant abandoning this house, my home, everything John and I had built. Running meant letting them win. The doorknob rattled. Daniel's voice now, harder than Emily's. "Mom, open the door. We know you're in there." My hand moved to my phone, fingers hovering over Henry's contact, and then I heard the sound that changed everything. A key sliding into the lock. They had a key. Of course they did. I'd given Daniel a spare years ago for emergencies. This was their emergency, not mine. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Daniel and Emily stood in my entryway. Their smiles were gone. Daniel's face had gone cold and hard. Emily's eyes glittered with something that looked almost like triumph.
Daniel spoke first, his voice flat and final. "Mom, we need to talk. You're not well, and we've made arrangements for your care. It's time." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. This was it, the moment they stopped pretending, and I realized with perfect, terrible clarity, I might not make it out of this house.
They stood in my entryway like executioners come to collect. Daniel's jaw was set. Emily's hands twisted together in front of her, playing nervous even though her eyes remained cold and calculating. I realized in that moment what real fear felt like, not the fear of dying, the fear of being erased while still breathing. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "What arrangements?" Daniel stepped further into my house, his house in his mind. Everything here already belonged to him. He spoke with the patience of someone explaining simple concepts to a child. "Mom, you've been struggling. We've all seen it. The confusion, the memory lapses. Yesterday, when I found you in Dad's study, you didn't even remember why you were there." A lie, a bald-faced lie delivered with such conviction I almost doubted my own memory. "I remember perfectly," I said quietly. Emily moved closer, her voice dripping false concern. "Mom, that's part of the problem. You think you're fine, but you're not seeing what we see. The doctors agree. You need supervised care." "What doctors? I haven't seen any doctors except for routine checkups." Daniel pulled folded papers from his jacket pocket. His movements were smooth, practiced. This was a script they'd rehearsed. "Dr. Chen, your therapist, she's documented significant cognitive decline over the past 6 months." The fraudulent therapist, the one whose office had never heard of me. My pulse hammered in my ears, but I kept my face neutral, confused, playing the part they expected. "I don't understand." "We know you don't, Mom," Emily said gently, stepping closer still, too close. "That's why we're here. We've arranged for you to move into Meadowbrook. It's a beautiful assisted living facility. You'll have your own room, 24-hour care, activities." "I'm not going anywhere." The words came out harder than I intended. Daniel's expression shifted, darkened. "Mom, this isn't optional. We have legal guardianship. The papers are already filed. You're coming with us today." Today. Right now. This morning. They were taking me this morning. My hands started shaking. I clasped them together to hide it. "I want to call my lawyer." Daniel's laugh was short and bitter. "Your lawyer, Mom? You don't have a lawyer. You haven't needed one." "Henry Moore. I spoke with him yesterday." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Daniel and Emily exchanged a glance, quick, sharp, communicating something I couldn't read. Daniel's voice went very quiet, very dangerous. "You called Henry Moore?" "Yes, and he's helping me." "With what, exactly?" Daniel cut me off, his tone shifting from patient to aggressive in a heartbeat. "What did you tell him?" The mask was cracking, the concerned sun disappearing to reveal something uglier underneath. Emily placed a hand on Daniel's arm, a warning, a reminder to stay in character. But it was too late. I'd seen it. The rage, the panic. They knew their plan was unraveling. "I told him the truth," I said, my voice stronger now. "About the medical records you falsified, the guardianship you filed without my consent, the money you've been stealing from my accounts." Emily's face went white. Daniel took a step toward me, and for the first time in my life, I was genuinely afraid of my own son.
"You don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. "You're confused, paranoid, exactly what the doctors said would happen." I'm not confused, I'm not paranoid, and I'm not going anywhere with you." Daniel's hand shot out and gripped my arm, hard. His fingers dug into my flesh. "Yes, you are. We're taking you to Meadowbrook right now. You can walk out, or we can call an ambulance and have you transported for psychiatric evaluation. Your choice." The threat landed like a blow. Psychiatric evaluation. Another way to label me incompetent. Another layer of documentation to bury me under. Emily stepped forward, her voice still trying for gentle, but her eyes glittering with malice. "Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're doing this for you. We love you." Those words, those poison words wrapped in sweetness. Something inside me snapped. "Love?" My voice came out low and sharp as a blade. "You call this love? Forging my signatures? Stealing my money? Filing a life insurance policy and waiting for me to die?" Emily gasped. Actually gasped like I'd struck her. The performance would have been Oscar-worthy if I didn't know better. Daniel's grip on my arm tightened. Pain shot up to my shoulder. "Who told you about that?" he demanded. "Does it matter? I know, Daniel. I know everything." His face contorted with rage. The son I'd raised was completely gone now. This was a stranger, a predator. "You don't know anything," he snarled. "You're a sick old woman who's become a burden. We've sacrificed years taking care of you, and for what? So you can sit in this house hoarding money you'll never spend? You're going to Meadowbrook, and once you're declared incompetent, we're selling this place and— Daniel!" Emily's voice cut through his tirade, sharp, urgent. He stopped, looked at her.
She gestured with her eyes toward the window, toward the street outside. I turned and saw it. A car pulling into my driveway. Not just any car, a police cruiser. My heart lurched. Had Henry sent them? Had Linda called when she realized what was happening? Daniel released my arm and stepped back. His face had gone from rage to calculation in an instant. The doorbell rang. None of us moved. It rang again. A voice called through the door. "This is Officer Martinez. We received a welfare check request for this address." Emily's mask snapped back into place. She smoothed her hair, arranged her face into concern, and opened the door. 2 officers stood on my porch, one older, one younger, both with hands resting casually on their belts. The older officer, Martinez, looked past Emily to me. "Mrs. Wilson? We got a call from a Linda Carter. She said she was concerned about your well-being. Are you all right?" Linda. God bless Linda. I opened my mouth to speak, but Emily beat me to it. "Officers, thank you so much for coming. As you can see, my mother-in-law is fine. We're actually just taking her to a doctor's appointment. She's been having some confusion lately, and we're getting her evaluated." Martinez's eyes never left my face.
"Ma'am, I need to hear from you. Are you safe? Are you here of your own free will?" This was it. This was my moment. I could tell them everything, show them the bruise already forming on my arm, explain about the fraud, the forgery, the life insurance policy. But I could also see Daniel's expression, the warning in his eyes, the papers in his pocket that said he had legal authority over me. If I spoke now, what would happen? Would they believe me? Or would they believe the concerned son and daughter-in-law, the medical records that said I was demented, the documents that said I needed care? Would speaking save me? Or would it give them exactly the evidence they needed to have me committed? My mind raced, calculating, weighing options. Officer Martinez stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Mrs. Wilson, if you're in danger, we can help, but you need to tell us." I looked at Daniel, at Emily, at the officers, at the edge of a cliff I was about to either jump off or pull back from. And then my phone rang, Henry's ringtone. Daniel's hand shot out to grab my phone, but the younger officer stepped between us. "Sir, step back, please." I answered the call,
put it on speaker with shaking hands. Henry's voice came through clear and sharp. "Margaret, don't go anywhere with them. I just filed emergency protective orders. The guardianship is frozen pending investigation. And Margaret, I'm standing in front of a judge right now with evidence of insurance fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. The police are on their way to arrest."
The line went dead. Not because the call dropped, because Daniel ripped the phone from my hand and smashed it against the wall. The officers reacted instantly, hands on their weapons, voices sharp with command. Daniel froze. Emily gasped. And I realized that everything, absolutely everything, was about to explode. The truth was coming, the reckoning Henry had promised. But first, we had to survive the next 60 seconds. The sound of my phone shattering against the wall echoed through the house like a gunshot. Everything happened at once. Officer Martinez moved fast, faster than a man his age should have been able to. He stepped between Daniel and me, his hand on his weapon but not drawing it. His voice came out cold and authoritative. "Sir, I need you to step back and put your hands where I can see them." The younger officer moved to flank Emily, his eyes sharp and alert. Daniel's chest heaved. His face had gone red, then white, then red again. The rage that had been simmering finally boiled over. "This is my mother," he said through clenched teeth. "This is a family matter. You have no right." Martinez cut him off with a single raised hand. "Sir, I just witnessed you destroy property and demonstrate aggressive behavior toward an elderly woman. That gives me plenty of right. Now step back." Daniel took a step back. His hands trembled at his sides. Emily tried a different approach. Her voice came out sweet and concerned, but I could hear the desperation underneath. "Officers, please understand. My mother-in-law is very confused. She's been making wild accusations. Her lawyer, well, he's elderly too, and we think he's taking advantage of her mental state."
"Ma'am," Martinez interrupted, his tone flat. "I'm going to need you to stop talking." He turned to me and his expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm going to ask you again. Do you feel safe in this house right now?" I looked at Daniel, at Emily, at the shattered remains of my phone scattered across the floor, at the bruise darkening on my arm where my son had grabbed me. "No," I said quietly, "I don't feel safe." Martinez nodded, keyed his radio. "Dispatch, I need a supervisor and a detective at this location. Possible elder abuse in progress." Those words, elder abuse, landed like bombs. Emily's mask finally cracked completely. Her voice rose, shrill and panicked. "This is ridiculous. We've done nothing but care for her. She's the one who's sick. Show them the medical records, Daniel. Show them." Daniel pulled the papers from his pocket with shaking hands, thrust them at Martinez. "Here, see? She has dementia. She's incompetent. We have legal guardianship. We were just trying to get her the care she needs." Martinez took the papers, scanned them briefly. His expression never changed. "These documents say guardianship is pending, not approved, and according to the call I just heard, they're now frozen pending investigation." He handed the papers back to Daniel. "So, as of right now, sir, you have no legal authority over your mother, and she's just stated she doesn't feel safe with you present." The silence that followed was suffocating.
Daniel's face contorted. I watched him cycle through emotions: rage, panic, calculation, desperation. And then he played his final card. His voice dropped, became almost gentle, almost like the son I used to know. "Mom," he said softly, "Mom, please, don't do this. We're family. I'm your son. I love you." The words should have broken me, should have made me doubt everything, but all I could think about was the life insurance policy, the $250,000 with the double indemnity clause for accidental death. I met his eyes, saw past the manufactured emotion to the cold calculation underneath. "No," I said clearly. You loved what I represented. You loved what you could take from me. But you don't love me, Daniel. You haven't loved me in a very long time. Something in him shattered. I saw it happen, the final wall coming down. We sacrificed everything for you, he shouted, his voice breaking. Emily quit her job to take care of you. I drove here 3 times a week. We put our lives on hold because you refused to make reasonable decisions about your future. The truth spilled out now, raw and ugly. You were sitting on all that money, all that equity in this house, and for what? To leave it to charity? To let it rot while we struggled with our mortgage, with our kids' college funds? You're going to die anyway. Why shouldn't we benefit? Why shouldn't we get what we've earned? There it was, the real motive laid bare. I wasn't a mother to him anymore. I was an asset that refused to liquidate. Martinez's voice cut through Daniel's tirade. Sir, I strongly suggest you stop talking. But Daniel couldn't stop. The dam had broken. We had a plan, a good plan. You were supposed to go to Meadowbrook, live there for a few years in comfort, and when you eventually passed, we'd inherit everything like we should have. But no, you had to start snooping around, calling lawyers, making everything difficult.
Emily grabbed his arm, her voice urgent and panicked. Daniel, shut up! Shut up right now! But he yanked away from her, still focused on me with wild eyes. Do you have any idea what you've done? The legal fees alone are going to bankrupt us. And for what? So you can die alone in this house? So you can spite us for trying to plan ahead? Officer Martinez stepped forward, his voice firm and final. Daniel Wilson, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted elder abuse and assault. You have the right to remain silent. The rest of the Miranda rights faded into background noise as Martinez cuffed Daniel's hands behind his back. Daniel didn't resist, didn't fight. He just stared at me with something between hatred and heartbreak. Emily tried to run. The younger officer caught her before she made it 3 steps. Within seconds, she was cuffed too. The officer spoke calmly as he restrained her. Ma'am, you're being detained for questioning regarding insurance fraud and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Emily's composure finally shattered completely. She started crying, real tears this time, not performed ones. I didn't want to do this, she sobbed. I told him it was wrong, but we needed the money. We needed it so badly. Martinez looked at me, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Wilson, do you have somewhere safe you can go? Family? Friends? I thought about Henry, about Linda, about the people who'd actually helped me instead of trying to bury me. Yes, I can call someone. He nodded, then gestured to the broken phone. Use mine. I took his phone with shaking hands and dialed Henry's number from memory. He answered immediately, his voice tight with worry. Martinez? Henry, it's Margaret. I'm okay. The police are here. Daniel and Emily. They're being arrested. The relief in his voice was palpable. Thank God. Margaret, stay there. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything until I arrive.
We hung up. I handed the phone back to Martinez. The officers led Daniel and Emily toward the door. Daniel looked back at me one last time. His voice came out hoarse and broken. I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope this was worth destroying your family. The accusation hung in the air, but I didn't flinch, didn't look away. I didn't destroy this family, Daniel. You did. The moment you decided I was worth more dead than alive. They took him away. Emily, too. Their voices fading as they were loaded into patrol cars. And then I was alone in my house, my home. The silence pressed in, heavy, overwhelming. I walked to the living room window and watched the police cars drive away. Neighbors had gathered on their lawns, watching, whispering. The scandal would spread through the neighborhood within hours. Within days, everyone would know. But I didn't care. I was free. Battered, exhausted, heartbroken, but free. Henry's car pulled into the driveway 15 minutes later. He walked up my path carrying his briefcase and wearing an expression of grim satisfaction. I opened the door before he could knock. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Then Henry smiled, really smiled, for the first time since this nightmare began.
We got them, Margaret. The guardianship is dissolved, the fraud charges are filed, and with Daniel's confession witnessed by 2 police officers, there's no way they're walking away from this. I nodded, felt tears building, but held them back. What happens now? Henry's expression turned serious. Now comes the hardest part. Now you decide what kind of justice you want. Criminal charges are moving forward regardless, but there are civil options too. You could sue to recover the stolen money, force the sale of assets, pursue maximum penalties. He paused, watching my face carefully. Or you could show mercy, reduced charges, restitution agreements. The choice is yours, Margaret. What do you want? I thought about Daniel, about the boy he'd been and the man he'd become, about whether some betrayals could ever be forgiven. The answer that came surprised even me. But before I could speak, Henry's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed, went very still. It's the county prosecutor's office. He answered, listened, his face growing more serious with each passing second. When he hung up, he looked at me with something almost like awe. Margaret, they found something else. Something in Emily's email account, and it changes everything. My heart stuttered. What did they find? Henry's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Evidence that this wasn't just about money. Margaret, you need to sit down. I sat down. Henry pulled out his tablet and turned it toward me. On the screen was an email thread, dated back 6 months, between Emily and someone named Marcus Webb. Henry's voice was gentle but firm as he explained. Marcus Webb is a private investigator Emily hired, but Margaret, he wasn't investigating you. He was investigating ways to accelerate your decline. The words didn't make sense at first. My brain couldn't process them. What do you mean, accelerate? Henry scrolled through the emails, his jaw tight. She was researching medications that cause confusion in elderly patients, asking about dosages, side effects, how to administer them without detection. The room tilted. I gripped the arm of the couch. She was going to drug me? The prosecutor believes she already was. Small amounts, nothing lethal, just enough to make you appear confused during medical appointments to support the dementia diagnosis. I thought back to the months after John died, the brain fog I'd attributed to grief, the moments where I'd walk into a room and forget why, the mornings I'd felt dizzy and disoriented. I'd blamed age, blamed stress. It had been poison. My daughter-in-law had been slowly poisoning me to make me appear incompetent. The nausea that hit was immediate and overwhelming. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left. When I came back, Henry was waiting with a glass of water. The good news, he said quietly, is that this evidence is irrefutable. Emily's going to prison. Daniel likely will too as an accessory. And Margaret, you'll get everything back. The money, the house, your autonomy, all of it. I drank the water, my hands still shaking. How long will they go to prison? Years, many years.
Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, attempted poisoning, the charges are stacking up. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I just felt empty.
Henry sat beside me, his voice turning softer. Margaret, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you want them to face the maximum penalties, or do you want to show mercy? I looked at him, at this man who'd fought for me when my own family had tried to erase me. What would you do? I asked. Henry was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words came slowly, carefully. I've practiced law for 43 years. I've seen families destroy each other over money more times than I can count. And here's what I've learned. Mercy doesn't mean letting them off. It means making sure justice serves you, not just punishes them. He leaned forward, his eyes intent on mine. If you pursue maximum charges, they'll spend a decade or more in prison. They'll lose everything, and you'll be tied to this case, depositions, trials, appeals for years. And if I don't? You offer a plea deal, reduced charges in exchange for full restitution, permanent restraining orders, and their immediate admission of guilt. They serve some time, enough to matter, but not enough to destroy what's left of their lives completely. I thought about Daniel as a child, about Emily on her wedding day, promising to be the daughter I'd never had, about the people they'd become. I want them to face consequences, I said slowly, real consequences. But Henry, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in courtrooms. I want to be free. Henry nodded, understanding in his eyes. Then we'll structure a plea agreement. They admit guilt. They pay back every cent with interest. They accept restraining orders that keep them away from you permanently. And they serve reduced sentences, 2 to 5 years instead of 10 to 20. Can they refuse? They can, but their lawyer will tell them not to, because if this goes to trial with the evidence we have, they'll lose everything. I closed my eyes, let myself feel the weight of it all. Then I opened them and met Henry's gaze. Do it, but I have one condition. Name it. I want a formal apology, in writing, not because I'll ever forgive them, but because I want them to acknowledge what they tried to do to me. Henry's smile was grim but satisfied. Done. 3 months later, I stood in a new apartment across town. The space was smaller than my old house, 1 bedroom, a tiny balcony overlooking a park, but it was mine, only mine. I'd sold the house, couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts, too many memories contaminated by betrayal. The money from the sale, combined with the restitution Daniel and Emily were paying, gave me more financial security than I'd had in years. Their written apologies sat in a folder in Henry's office. I'd read them once. They were hollow, performative, legal documents pretending to be remorse. I never needed to read them again. Daniel was serving 4 years, Emily 6, due to the poisoning charges. I didn't visit, didn't write, didn't respond when Daniel sent letters begging for forgiveness. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. Linda came to visit on a Tuesday afternoon. We sat on my balcony drinking tea and watching children play in the park below. Her voice was warm as she spoke. "You look good, Margaret. Peaceful." I smiled, felt the truth of it. I am peaceful, for the first time in years. Any regrets? I thought about that. Really thought about it. No, I regret that it happened. I regret that my son became the kind of man who could look at his mother and see only dollar signs. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret surviving. Linda reached over and squeezed my hand. You did more than survive. You won. Did I win? I'd lost my family, lost my home, lost the future I'd imagined. But I'd kept my autonomy, my dignity, my right to decide. maybe that was winning. Henry stopped by later that evening with dinner and updates. The legal case was finally closing, all appeals exhausted, all accounts settled. We ate Chinese takeout on my small balcony as the sun set in streaks of orange and gold. Henry raised his glass of wine in a quiet toast. To Margaret Wilson, the most dangerous opponent I've ever had the honor of representing. I clinked my glass against his. To John, I said softly, for teaching me that the best revenge is living well. We drank in comfortable silence. After Henry left, I stood alone on my balcony and looked out at the city lights blinking to life. Somewhere out there, Daniel sat in a prison cell thinking about his choices. Somewhere out there, Emily learned what it meant to be powerless. And here I stood, 68 years old, alive, free, unbroken. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, vulnerable, convinced that family meant safety. I wasn't that woman anymore. Age hadn't weakened me, it had sharpened me. And the greatest lesson I'd learned, the one I wanted everyone like me to understand, was this. When someone tries to erase you, the most powerful act of rebellion is simply continuing to exist. On your terms, in your voice, with your name signed clearly at the bottom. I pulled out my phone, new one, my number, my account, and opened the Notes app. I started typing. My story, this story, the one you've been hearing, because somewhere out there, someone else is sitting in a hospital waiting room. Someone else is being told they're confused, incompetent, no longer capable of deciding for themselves. Someone else needs to know they're not alone, that survival is possible, that revenge doesn't have to be violent to be devastating. I typed late into the night, my fingers moving across the screen, my voice finally, completely, undeniably my own. When I finished, I read it through once, then I hit publish. The story went live on a seniors advocacy website Linda had connected me with. Within an hour, the comments started coming in. This is happening to my mother. I thought I was losing my mind. Thank you for speaking up. How do I fight back? I answered every single one, shared Henry's contact information, listed resources, offered hope. Because that's what this had all been about, really. Not revenge. Hope. The hope that even in our most vulnerable moments, even when the people we trust most betray us, we still have power. We still have agency. We still have the right to sign our own names and mean it. I stood on my balcony one last time before bed, the city quiet now, peaceful. Tomorrow I'd meet with a support group for elder abuse survivors. I'd volunteered to speak, to share, to help others find their voices. But tonight, I was just Margaret Wilson, 68 years old, survivor, fighter, free. And that was more than enough.